lost in the woods. The village of Larkmoor sat buried deep in the forest, its wooden cottages hunched and leaning like bones in a forgotten graveyard. Quiet, isolated and blanketed in the eternal shade of towering trees. It wasn't even marked on most maps, just how the villagers liked it. There were rituals here, old ones, ways of living and laws unspoken. Outsiders rarely stumbled upon Larkmoor, and when they did, they never stayed long. Except for him. James had been lost for hours. What had started as a hiking trip in search of tranquility had turned into a nightmare. His GPS flickered and died miles ago. The trail he'd been following, the one the guidebook said looped back around, had vanished into the brambles. And now the sun had set. His flashlight reflected off the gnarled tree's bark, their shapes twisting into grotesque shadows at every turn. But then, relief. A clearing in the woods, and a signpost, old and splintered. Welcome to Larkmoor, a village, civilization, at last. As James stepped into the clearing, the forest's darkness seemed to swallow itself, replaced by a hushed stillness. The village's narrow dirt lanes stretched ahead, flanked by cottages with peeling shutters and sagging roofs. Candlelight flickered behind curtains, but no sounds emerged. No dogs barked, no laughter echoed. James was struck by how lifeless the village felt, like a place abandoned mid-breath. Using his phone's dying battery, he dialed for help, but the words "no service" glared at him. He sighed. A knock on one of the nearby doors, he thought, would be his next move. Surely someone could point him in the direction of the nearest highway. But James hesitated. Something about the place gnawed at him, a strange unease, as if the shadows in the village were watching him. He shook it off, desperate, his stomach grumbling. Approaching the nearest cottage, he knocked. The door opened. Slowly. An old woman peered out, her face pale and gaunt. Her eyes studied him for an uncomfortably long time, and James noticed her lips didn't move when she spoke. "You should leave," she murmured. "Now." James blinked, taken aback. The innkeeper's warning. "I'm lost. Please, could you tell me how I can?" The door creaked shut, firm. Such utter rejection raised his hackles. He knocked again, but received no response. Further down the village square stood an old inn, its sign faded and illegible. Its door hung slightly ajar. With no other choice, James stepped inside. The smell of damp wood and mildew hit him immediately. Under dim lantern lights sat a hunched figure at a desk. A man with sunken cheeks and gray skin that seemed to absorb the weak glow. "A room?" James asked hopefully. The man didn't look up, his voice monotone. "You shouldn't stay." James frowned. "Why does everyone keep saying that? Look, I just need directions, or somewhere safe for the night." The innkeeper raised one heavy arm and pointed to a staircase leading upwards. Relieved but disturbed, James ventured up creaking steps to a small room with paper-thin walls. Whispers in the night. He dropped his bag in the corner, intending to rest before leaving at sunrise. But sleep wouldn't come easily because the whispers started. Soft at first, fragments of sound, muffled as though they came from the walls. He pressed his ear to the wooden slats and heard words, foreign ones, guttural and wrong. They were coming from outside. Pulling the curtain aside, he stared out into the village square and froze. The villagers' ritual. The villagers, dozens of them, stood gathered, motionless under the moonlight. They formed a perfect circle, their faces blank as death masks. James's breath hitched. Their heads began to tilt upward as one, impossibly synchronized. And then their mouths moved, chanting that same incomprehensible language. He stepped back from the window, horrified, and his foot landed on something soft, something in the room. He turned slowly. Someone was in his room. But no, not someone. Something. It crouched in the corner, its skin gray like ash and stretched taut over jagged bones. Its eyes, two endless voids, bored into him, unblinking, and its mouth stretched impossibly wide, revealing rotted teeth that didn't match the human form it wore. James couldn't scream. His entire body locked as the creature shambled closer, its movements jerky and unnatural as if a puppet. Suddenly his door slammed open. The innkeeper was there, his face twisted in terror. "Run," was all he said. The escape and aftermath. James ran. Out the door, out of the inn, past the circle of villagers who didn't so much as acknowledge his presence. The forest claws ripped at him as he fled, praying he wouldn't look back. Because he knew whatever that thing was, it would be following. The next day, searchers found James's body.